Line array or point source boxes?
Oh, okay. We're going there, huh?
We're going there.
Let's define what that is.
Yeah, that's probably a good place to start.
So line array would be those boxes that you see hanging down like this. You got a bunch of boxes.
Yep, you're going to stack
and they're
them.
all hanging like when you're at a festival and you see 15
a big
of
line.
them, and they're like flat, and then they start to curve down,
Yep.
and you can hear them 4 miles away.
Yeah.
Versus point source, which would be like
Just
a regular
full
old
range box.
regular old speaker.
Yep. Usually you can see the big woofer and the little horn.
Or if you have don't want to say any names, but like a KLA system, it looks like a point source, but it's really, it looks like a line array, but it's just really a bunch of point sources.
Yeah, they just
hanging.
molded. They molded a point source box so they kind
We
of
won't go. We won't.
It's a hybrid.
It's a hybrid. Yeah,
I've used them before.
It looks like a line array and
Yeah.
acts like a point source.
There you go.
Okay. Now that we've kind of determined what those are, what do they do?
Yeah.
Well,
What are they good for?
okay, so in a line array system, you've got a bunch of speakers, and they're usually smaller.
Yep.
Usually than a point source, but there's a bunch of them. So what happens when you put things together? They couple,
Yep.
and then they push at different lengths. Wavelengths push. So that's why when you're farther away from the speaker, it sounds like you're closer than you actually are
Yep.
to the speaker. So obviously, if you know that, then you can imagine yourself in a room somewhere. Let's say you're in a fairly good sized room and the stage is 60 feet away,
Yeah.
but you want to hear it like it's pretty close to you. Well, then in that scenario, there's a lot of factors to
Yeah.
that.
Of course.
In that scenario, a line array might be really good.
Mm-hmm.
But in another scenario, it might be not so good. So, for example, there was a church that we did and install that was more of like a round. Like it was like here's the stage. I'm looking at the program screen so I can see what I'm doing. Here's the stage. Here's the seats. You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying?
They kind of wrapped around the stage.
Seats, okay, but
Yep.
it doesn't go super far back.
No, it's not a big auditorium.
So what we did was we did 6 point source boxes. We
Yep.
just kind of made an array. They were a ways
but instead
apart.
of it being in a line,
it was
built them around the stage.
So the box did a 6 if it was upright, like if this was a point source box sitting on this table,
Yeah.
it was 40
Yep.
by 60. So what I did was I flipped it. I'm not going to do that with this.
Don't do that with that.
I flipped it on its side, but left it. You can change the box however you,
can,
want.
yep.
On this particular one, it was an EV Tour X box.
Right.
And but you turned it, and now I have 60 by 40. So you imagine you have your little stage here. You've got your seats, box. Okay, that 60-degree angle coming down onto the seats was perfect
Yeah, it
because it
covers the whole
started at the
seating
first seat, it ended at the last seat.
Yep.
It was a point source. It started at one point. The source started at one point and went out.
Yeah.
And it nicely covered. We did a left, right, left, right, left, right. So you were in stereo in the entire room.
And that's what was cool about that one is because you did point source boxes, we were able to create basically a stereo field for each section of seating, which if you'd just done 2 line array hangs, you would have had a really wide stereo field where on the extreme edges you might be running into issues where you can't really hear the other side.
Yeah, and it would have been really, really expensive.
Well, and that's to put in perspective, for those of you who don't know, a full range box that might have a 60-degree horn, to get that same amount of coverage from a line array, typically you'd have to have anywhere from 4 to 6 boxes in your line.
Yeah.
Just to get that same degree. But then the other issue you're working with is in the line array, we use coupling to our advantage. So as audio technicians, we want coupling because it's going to throw sound really far and help us kind of shape the sound basically. But if you're in a pretty short room, you're throwing most of your sound at the back wall then.
Yeah.
And
so
not at the people.
It really depends. But here's the kicker.
Yeah.
And you sort of see this in church. You see this a lot more on the road.
Right.
Doing whatever. But people listen
With their
eyes.
All the time.
They see, they got those speakers that hang.
Yep.
Oh, sounds amazing. Or you do racks and stacks where you got a couple subs and then speakers on it. Like, oh, that's awful. Like,
Yeah.
it's awful.
Which
and
is
I've been
weird.
they look with their eyes.
Yep.
And And that's not a good way to listen to sound with your
No.
eyes.
I mean, especially when you're talking about church. Now, there are a lot of philosophies about what church audio should be.
Yes.
And I'm kind of the opinion that it should blend in, right? I don't know. I'm one of those people who's like, I don't really want to notice the PA. I want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So in a lot of cases, we can get some full range point source boxes way up in the ceiling. And the best, I don't know if I've ever told you about this, the best sounding church I've ever been in was in Kansas City, where there's a lot of churches. And it was clusters of point source boxes because it was a big hockey arena. So they had a kind of like what we did at that other church. They had a right hang, a center left, a center right, and a left hang. So they had 4 hangs. And they were still running an old analog desk with outboard gear. Oh my goodness. I absolutely loved it. So the cool thing about full range too is it is exactly what we just said. It's full range. In a lot of cases, you can get a lot of sound out of one box, a lot of depth. So it really comes down to your design and what you're trying to accomplish. And that's where having a professional audio design consulting company like Sound and Church can be really helpful, because if you're just shopping with your eyes, you might just think, I need a really big line array.
If you're shopping with your eyes, more than likely you're going to spend 10 times the amount of money that you need to.
You're going to hang this giant line array. Now, we're not anti-line arrays in churches.
No,
like there's
not at all.
Plenty of good applications.
Yes.
But like what we're trying to say is there's no one size fits all.
It's like, do I need to buy a truck or a car? Well, it depends.
Yeah.
Depends on what
trying
you're
to
doing.
accomplish?
So
yeah, don't get too caught up in, does it look cool? Ask yourself, does it sound good? Is it going to meet our needs?